This locomotive needs little introduction. Southern Pacific GS-4 class Northern Type number 4449 has a long and storied history of mainline excursion trips. Today she is being readied for quite an epic trek. While 4449 has had limited options for mainline running since Amtrak eliminated its special train program, 4449 recently received a welcome break. Fall foliage trips were planned on the Buckingham Branch Railroad for September and October of 2025. The locomotive originally planned to pull these trips suffered mechanical problems and was no longer available. A phone call was made to the Oregon Rail Heritage Center, and after a few weeks of preparation and ferry moves, SP-4449 and her support train arrived in Waynesboro, Virginia, behind Norfolk Southern's N&W Heritage Unit. She arrived backwards, so she would be facing the right direction when she entered the Buckingham Branch. Over the course of the following month, 4449 led the Shenandoah Valley Limited between Goshen and Staunton, Virginia. Although the trips had to be run push-pull, the bright red and orange of the daylight against the rugged backdrop of the Blue Ridge Mountains made for a spectacle not soon to be forgotten. Once the Shenandoah Valley trips concluded, 4449's crew couldn't help but arrange to bring the locomotive to another destination while they were on the eastern side of the country. While running such a large locomotive on a small railroad proved a challenge, to many her visit made for a rail fan's paradise. The Railway Express Agency was an expedited parcel service that began its life in 1918 as a consolidation of a variety of smaller package and money handling services during the First World War. The company handled express shipments on passenger trains and local deliveries from the passenger terminals. As passenger service declined in the 60s, REA began to look for alternatives to shipping by rail, beginning to work on consolidating air and truck shipments into their repertoire. However, the formation of Amtrak in 1971 gave REA executives an idea. With passenger rail stabilizing somewhat, they saw an opportunity to return to their core model, quick shipment of packages on passenger trains. This worked decently well at first, and gave Amtrak the idea to get a contract with the U.S. Postal Service to haul mail on Amtrak's trains. REA found itself in a bit of a situation, though, as most of its fleet was old, with some of its cars being rebuilt from World War II troop sleeper cars. In the early 1980s, Amtrak ordered a fleet of Material Handling Car, or MHC, boxcars. REA placed a parallel order for the same cars, which helped move their fleet into the modern era. While REA's own business was dwindling, they were able to contract with Federal Express, better known as FedEx, to whisk packages between FedEx's major hubs. Trains like Amtrak's Three Rivers gained a reputation for having more mail and freight cars than passenger cars, in no small part thanks to REA's heavy presence on the train from Philadelphia to Chicago. In the mid-1990s, however, when reviewing cases of packages being delayed 10 hours or more between hubs, FedEx executives said, "What are we doing?" and did not renew the contract with REA. The loss of the single largest customer was the death knell for the Railway Express Agency, which collapsed into bankruptcy less than a year later. It was later revealed that the collapse may have been facilitated by the last CEO embezzling some $500,000 from the company. REA's remaining serviceable boxcars were sold to Amtrak, who used them until 2004 when Amtrak ceased hauling mail. The rest of the company's equipment was auctioned off as junk, which was gladly eaten up by many railroad museums. That's why when you go to a railroad museum today, they seem to have REA everything there. In 1971, an entrepreneur by the name of Eugene Garfield took an old feasibility study and made it into an all-new service he called AutoTrain. Running parallel to Interstate 95 from Lorton, Virginia to Sanford, Florida, the train offered a way to travel to or from Florida with your own car. Passengers replaced 2 days of driving with an overnight train trip, their cars riding along behind them on the same train. The service was a smash hit, even if the initial motive power was a little strange. Pennsylvania Railroad T1 number 5539 was a duplex drive locomotive that the PRR had financed through Mutual of New York, or MONY. This meant that when the PRR retired the T1, MONY had final say over its disposition. They sold the locomotive to Kowalczyk Salvage of Burnham, Pennsylvania. Kowalczyk's was a busy yard, and the T1 stayed tucked away in the back for many years. As Eugene Garfield searched for equipment for the AutoTrain, he was tipped off about the large locomotive and approached Kowalczyk asking, "How much?" With the stroke of a pen, Garfield had a relatively inexpensive locomotive to launch his service with. Although she needed a new set of flues, 5539 was in decent condition. In gleaming new purple, red, and white paint, number 5539 led many of the early AutoTrain services up and down the RF&P and Seaboard Coastline tracks. She was given the apt name of Great White, and became an unmistakable part of the AutoTrain's early image. A retired RF&P engineer loaned a 6-chime whistle from a Governor-class locomotive for use on Great White. While Great White was a very capable locomotive, Mr. Garfield had a fleet of U-36B diesels on order from GE, and as these were delivered, Great White saw less and less service. She eventually became a reserve locomotive. As maintenance issues began to plague the U-36s, 5539 was called upon more frequently, until she was finally taken down by a collapsed dry pipe on a southbound run in 1978. She was left in a siding near Charleston, South Carolina for some time until she was sold to a used equipment dealer in a last-ditch effort by AutoTrain Corporation to raise a little cash. Not much is known about what happened to Great White after that. Some accounts say she was scrapped on the spot. Others claim to have seen her in a yard in Ohio, and others still claim she is hidden somewhere in central Pennsylvania, being slowly disassembled and moved piece by piece to Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania, where she will be passed off as new-build T1 5550.